I think it was Eala is the match that I was looking at, and there's people like wrapped around the stadium just trying to get in, which is pretty crazy. And I mean, it's cool to see and it's exciting, but obviously, you know, for fan experience, I don't know because I'm not living that same experience. But hopefully, the event kind of continues to grow the fans that we're getting and making that still an enjoyable experience for them. But I did see some of the courts have like lines getting in and it seems really busy, and I saw some reports that it's some of their busiest.
JessicaPegula just validated everything AlexEala fans already knew. There are moments in sports where everything just clicks into place, where the noise stops, the doubters go quiet, and the truth lands right in front of you with nowhere to hide. What just happened at the post-match press conference in Dubai was one of those moments. And if you are a fan of Eala, if you have been riding with her from the beginning, you need to stop whatever you are doing right now and pay close attention, because the validation you have been waiting for just arrived in the most powerful way possible. JessicaPegula, the woman who just won the Dubai Championship in absolutely dominant fashion, sat down in front of the world's media with the trophy sitting right next to her. She had every reason in the world to make that press conference entirely about herself, about her serve, her footwork, her mental toughness, her preparation. She had just won a major title. It was her moment. But something remarkable happened. A huge chunk of that conversation shifted to a 20-year-old player who was not even in the final. Pegula went out of her way to talk about Eala with genuine awe and deep tactical respect, and the tennis world is now being forced to sit up and pay attention in a way it has never quite had to before. If you want to stay updated on every development in Eala's rise through the professional ranks, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications. This channel covers every match, every press conference, and every moment in her journey as it happens. Now let's get into exactly what was said in Dubai and why it matters so much. To fully understand why Pegula's words carry so much weight, you have to understand who JessicaPegula is in the context of women's tennis. She is not a mid-level tour player throwing out compliments to seem nice. She is one of the best players on the planet. She has been ranked inside the top 5 in the world. She has gone deep at Grand Slams. She has beaten almost every big name in the game at one point or another. When she speaks about tennis, she speaks from a place of real experience and real knowledge. She does not waste words, and she does not hand out compliments because it makes for good television. So when she chooses to spend a meaningful portion of her winner's press conference talking about a 20-year-old rising star, you better believe that means something. The conversation started with the crowds. If you have been following Eala at all over the past year, you already know that wherever she goes, the atmosphere transforms into something completely different. It stops being a regular tennis tournament and starts feeling like a cultural event. Fans line up hours before her matches. They pack into stands that are meant to hold a certain number of people and somehow hold more. They bring flags, they bring signs, they chant her name, they create a wall of noise that changes the energy of the entire venue. And in Dubai, where a significant portion of the population is Filipino, that energy reached a completely new level. Pegula admitted that she was looking at Eala's match and saw people wrapped entirely around the outside of the stadium, not just a queue, not just a line, people completely surrounding the building, just trying to find a way to get inside and watch a young woman hit tennis balls. Pegula called it pretty crazy and said it was cool to see and exciting. She acknowledged that while she does not personally have that same kind of fan experience following her around, she genuinely hopes the event keeps growing with these new fans and that the energy continues. Now think about what that means coming from a player like Pegula. She has played on center court at every major Grand Slam in the world. She is used to big crowds and big atmospheres. For something to genuinely surprise her and grab her attention, it has to be something truly out of the ordinary. And Eala's crowds are exactly that. Here is what makes this crowd situation so remarkable when you look at the numbers. At the Australian Open earlier this year, Eala's pre-tournament press conference was watched 171,000 times on YouTube. 171,000 views for a press conference. Meanwhile, Aryna Sabalenka, the two-time defending Australian Open champion, pulled in roughly 8,000 views for her equivalent press conference. That means a young player who had never won a Grand Slam was generating more than 20 times the global digital interest of an established champion who had literally won the tournament twice before. Let that sink in for a moment. 20 times the interest. That is not a small gap. That is a different universe. Prominent tennis writers are now genuinely asking out loud whether Eala is already the single most popular player in all of women's tennis right now, regardless of where she sits in the rankings. Tournament directors and tour executives are scrambling to figure out how to handle this phenomenon, how to put her on the right courts, how to accommodate the sheer volume of people who show up specifically to watch her play. But here is the thing about crowd numbers and YouTube views and social media following. None of that wins you a tennis match. The locker room does not care about your Instagram following. The umpire does not give you extra games because your fans are louder. The ball does not know how many people are watching. The tennis world, the professional tennis world specifically, only respects what happens when the points are being played. Coaches, players, and analysts talk in terms of ground stroke depth, serve placement, movement efficiency, and mental composure under pressure. And that is exactly where JessicaPegula's press conference became genuinely historic for Eala fans. Because after talking about the crowds, Pegula was asked directly about Eala's actual tennis game, and everything changed in that moment. The polite, corporate answer that players often give about opponents completely disappeared. Pegula did not say something vague like, she has a lot of potential, or she is going to be a great player someday. She gave a real, detailed, technically specific breakdown of why Eala is a nightmare to play against right now, today, at this level of professional tennis. Pegula said plainly that Eala is a really good tennis player. Then she got specific. She pointed out that Eala goes for her shots and takes the ball early. Now, if you are not a tennis person, that phrase might not mean much to you, so let's break it down, because it is actually one of the most important technical compliments a player can receive. Taking the ball early means that instead of waiting for the ball to reach its peak height and come back down before striking it, Eala is stepping into the court and hitting it on the rise, right after the bounce, before it reaches that comfortable hitting zone. This is extremely difficult to do. It requires perfect timing, exceptional footwork, and elite hand-eye coordination. But when you pull it off consistently, the effect on your opponent is devastating, because you are essentially stealing time from them. Instead of having a full second or more to set up for the next shot, they suddenly have half a second. Their feet are not in the right position. Their racket is not prepared. The rally that was going to be neutral suddenly belongs to you. Pegula is one of the best defenders on the WTA Tour, someone who absorbs pace and redirects it better than almost anyone. For her to specifically highlight Eala's early ball striking as a problem tells you everything you need to know about the genuine quality of Eala's game. Pegula also pointed out that being a left-hander is always tricky to deal with. This is something that does not get talked about enough when people discuss what makes Eala such a difficult opponent. Left-handed players present unusual angles and spins that right-handed players face far less frequently in practice and competition. The serve kicks in unexpected directions, the forehand comes into the body from a different side, the natural cross-court shots go to places that feel uncomfortable. Most professional players train predominantly against right-handed opponents because the overwhelming majority of the tour plays right-handed. When a left-hander shows up with real weapons and real precision, it creates a mental and physical adjustment problem that takes time to solve. Eala is not just a lefty, she is a lefty who takes the ball early and goes for her shots with conviction. That combination is a specific and serious tactical problem for any player on the tour. Then, Pegula added something that might be the most important phrase she said in the entire press conference. She said that Eala competes really well. Those 3 words, competes really well, represent perhaps the deepest compliment one professional player can give another. Anyone can hit good shots in practice. Anyone can look impressive when the pressure is off and the stands are empty and there is nothing on the line. What separates the great players from everyone else is what happens when the moment is enormous and the pressure is unbearable and every point feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The ability to compete, to stay present, to keep executing your game plan when your body is exhausted and your mind is screaming at you, that is the rarest quality in professional sports. Pegula is not saying Eala might develop into a good competitor someday. She is saying Eala already is one, right now, against top 5 opposition on a big stage in a major tournament. That is an extraordinary acknowledgement.
And then came the line that I think every single member of the Eala fan base needs to remember whenever anyone tries to dismiss her as just a social media phenomenon or a product of national hype. Pegula looked at the cameras and said she does not really think Eala needs her to tell her that she is a great player, that we are not going to see enough of her, but we definitely are. She finished by saying simply that Eala proved it that night and that it was really tough. Unpack those words carefully. Pegula is saying that Eala already knows her own value. She already possesses the internal confidence and the self-belief of an established elite professional. She does not need external validation from champions to feel good about her game. But more than that, Pegula is saying to the entire tennis world that this player is coming, that the amount of Eala that we have seen so far is not going to be the full picture, that there is significantly more to come. She is making a prediction rooted in what she experienced on the court, not what she read on social media or heard from fans. She is speaking from direct personal knowledge of what it feels like to stand across the net from Eala for 2.5 hours on a professional hard court. And Pegula is not alone in this observation. Novak Djokovic, a man who has won 24 Grand Slams and has seen virtually every talented young player come through the sport over the past 2 decades, recently felt compelled to comment on the massive crowds surrounding Eala's matches. He called it a good problem to have. When someone with Djokovic's experience and perspective takes time to notice and comment on a young player's impact on the sport, that is a significant marker of just how unusual and real this phenomenon is. Now step back and think about what Eala is actually navigating as a 20-year-old professional tennis player. She is carrying the weight of an entire nation's pride every time she walks onto a court. The Philippines does not have a long history of producing elite tennis talent at this level, and the entire country is watching with an intensity that is hard to describe to someone who has not seen it. When she plays in a tournament in the Middle East, close to 10% of the local population is Filipino, and those fans show up. They fill stadiums that were never designed to hold that kind of emotional investment. They wrap around buildings just to catch a glimpse of her practicing. The sheer volume of expectation and love and hope that follows her everywhere she goes would be overwhelming for any athlete, let alone someone who is still just 20 years old and still developing her game. It would be completely understandable if that pressure got to her. Sports history is full of young players who had enormous hype, enormous fan bases, enormous expectation, and who crumbled under the weight of it all because they could not separate the noise outside the court from the work that needed to be done inside it. But Eala does something that is genuinely rare. She zones it out. She steps across that baseline and plays disciplined, intelligent, physical tennis. She does not try to win matches quickly to please the crowd. She grinds, she defends, she reads the game, she forces opponents into long, physically demanding rallies that exhaust them over multiple sets. She makes world-class players earn every single point they get against her, and even when she loses, she walks off the court having demonstrated something that you cannot fake, which is elite competitive quality. Think back to the Miami Open match between Eala and Pegula that a lot of people point to as the moment this whole explosion really started. Pegula won the match, but the scoreline told the story of how difficult it was. 7-6, 5-7, 6-3. 2.5 hours of grueling professional tennis. Pegula walked off that court having survived a serious test, not having beaten a player who was simply outclassed. That is the match that made the wider tennis community start paying real attention to what Eala was doing. That is the match that made coaches and analysts and journalists start looking up her stats and rewatching her technique and asking serious questions about where her ceiling actually is. The reason the Eala fanbase is so emotionally invested in her goes beyond national pride, although national pride is obviously a huge part of it and should not be minimized. There is something deeper happening. Fans are watching a player who has earned everything through pure work and grit. She does not have a bomb serve that gifts her free points. She is not physically imposing in a way that makes opponents back off. She has to earn every single advantage through movement, decision-making, timing, and sheer refusal to give up. Her style of tennis is honest, it is hard-working, it is intelligent, it rewards the people who watch closely because there is always something to learn and appreciate in how she constructs a point. When a player wins through grit and craft rather than through overpowering physical dominance, fans feel like they are winning alongside her because they can see the human effort behind every point. When JessicaPegula sat in that press room in Dubai with her trophy beside her and chose to spend real, genuine time talking about what it's like to face Eala on a tennis court, she was doing something that no amount of fan support or viral video could ever replicate. She was giving the entire tennis establishment permission to take Eala completely seriously. She was saying from the perspective of someone who has lived the experience of facing her competitively that the hype is not just hype. She was converting what many people had been willing to dismiss as a social media story into something that cannot be dismissed at all, which is the tactical respect of a proven champion. There are still people out there who will say that Eala needs to win a title first, that she needs to climb higher in the rankings before she deserves this level of attention and respect, and that is a fair argument up to a point. Rankings and titles absolutely matter in professional tennis, but what Pegula's press conference demonstrated is that the tennis community itself, the people who actually play this sport at the highest level, are already looking at Eala not as a future prospect, but as a present reality and a current threat. That is a different and more important kind of respect than any ranking number can provide.
The story of Eala is still being written. She is 20 years old, which means she is right at the beginning of what could be a career spanning another 15 years or more. The tactical skills that Pegula identified, the early ball striking, the left-handed angles, the competitive intensity, these are not skills that peak at 20. These are the foundations of a game that will continue to develop and sharpen as she accumulates more experience and more time on the professional tour. The crowds are not going anywhere, the national support is not going anywhere, and if anything, the level of tennis she is playing suggests that the results are only going to continue improving as she gets more comfortable at the very top of the sport. What happened in that press room in Dubai was simple but profound. The newly crowned champion of one of the most significant tournaments on the WTA calendar looked at the cameras and told the world that Eala is the real deal. Not a hype train, not a social media story, not a feel-good narrative for a nation that needed a sporting hero. A genuine, technically accomplished, mentally tough, elite professional tennis player who competes at the highest level and forces the very best players in the world to bring their absolute best just to edge her out. That is the truth that JessicaPegula delivered in Dubai. And it is the truth that every person who has been watching Eala from the beginning already knew in their heart. The validation has arrived. Now the work continues, and the best is absolutely still to come. If this breakdown gave you a new appreciation for just how serious Eala's game really is at the professional level, hit the like button to help push this analysis to more tennis fans who need to see it. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already on board, because this is only going to get bigger, and you do not want to miss a single moment of what comes next. Turn on your notifications so you are the first to know when the next video drops. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. How did it feel hearing Pegula break down Eala's game in that kind of technical detail? Do you think the massive crowds give her energy or add pressure? I read every single comment, and I want to know exactly what the Eala army is thinking tonight.